Did we all just get kicked off?
Seems like it.
Yep.
It looked like
This is a fun game.
looked like Jessica Bechtel had signed on. And somehow that, because I was the host and then she came on as the host, so maybe something happened there.
Well, let's let everyone reconnect and we'll get this party started.
Okay. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. I thought she was going to be gone today and asked me to take care of the.
And then it looks like we have that street light demo this afternoon.
Yes.
So at 3 o'clock. So hopefully we'll try to have a goal to be done by then so we can all attend that. Because I think pretty much everyone on this group is interested in seeing it.
Yeah. And I think in general, we have a pretty light agenda, so.
Okay, good. Well, let's call this meeting to order. You said Jessica's not here, so who, Catherine, do you know is going to take roll call for us?
That will be me.
Okay.
I will be taking care of that. So I'm writing down those names. So let's see. I'll call off who I have and let me know if I don't get you. Okay, so we have Sally Dole, Laura, Marla Lucky, which I'm not, that's a new name, so I'll come back to that in a minute. Debbie Flynn, Darren, Penny. We have a Crossegg, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. We have some new names on today. We have a Rachel, Wendy, Will, Gail, Lachelle, Amy Kelly, Victoria, John Leosatos, Aaron Busto, Tim Roberts, Brian Batuli, Kathleen, Jason. I saw a Hydrosource. I'm not sure who that is. Did I miss any voting members? We'll get started with that piece.
Okay.
Okay. Do we want to do introductions for those people we don't know, Dole?
Sure.
All right. I'll go through my screen just so we, all right, we have a Dave Summers. You want to introduce yourself and who you're with?
Dave's with Invita, so if he's away there.
I'm here. Sorry, I was on mute. Dave Summers, I'm with Invita. I'm standing in for Gail today. She couldn't make the call.
Thank you. All right, we have a Jason De Bueno.
Jason DeBuena with Silver Key. Jason, I don't think your mic's on, or are you away?
I am here, sorry.
No problem.
I think one of our voting action items is why we have all these extra names. So welcome, everyone. All right, we have a Marla Lucky.
Hi, I'm with the health department. I'm the healthy environment planner, and I am just joining because I think my predecessor had attended some of these meetings, Aubrey Day, and I have been mostly on COVID response since I started this position, and I came off that recently. So I'm trying to get a little more connected with my partners in the transportation community and built environment and things like that, just to know kind of what's going on. And as I'm starting to join committees and get more involved in planning process. So nice to see you all. Thanks.
Welcome. All right. We have a Rachel. There's no last name there.
Hi, I'm Rachel with Community Intersections.
Thank you, Rachel. And all right, on the second page, an Ayoka Peck.
Hopefully you can hear me. It's Ayoka Peck, and I'm a community planner with Peterson Air Force Base. I started last summer and I took over for I took over for someone else, and then Mike Schaefer retired at the end of the year, so I'm the only planner right now.
Welcome. Great. Looks like we have a couple more. Jeff Guthrie.
Howdy, everyone. Jeff Guthrie from CDOT Region 2.
Hi, Jeff. And then we have an iPhone that doesn't have a name to it.
This is Jolene Houseman with Mountain Valley Senior Center.
Hi, Jolene. right, and then one more looks like we've got a hydro source. I don't see a name.
Right, hydro source, that's me, Gary Barber.
Okay. Thanks, Gary. All
Wow,
right,
we got a full house, Catherine.
we do.
I'm with the rail project down in Fountain.
Hi, Gary, thanks.
Hey, Catherine, it's Wendy. I keep having problems with my internet today, so it keeps cutting me out. So I don't know if you missed me.
I did call your name, but so it's good to have you back. Thanks, Wendy.
Mine went out
Alright.
too, Glenn Krause from CDOT, so
Glenn
I
Krause.
don't know if you called me or not.
Okay, I got you down. Thank you.
Mine as well, Catherine. This is Amy from USAPA.
Okay, thanks. I think we had a mass cut out of everyone, so thanks everybody for coming back on. I will hand it back over to Dole.
Catherine, did we have like an email that went out that reminded everybody to join today? I feel like we swelled by 50% at today's meeting.
Well, there's an action item for with Laura Cruz that involves a lot of these people that are on the call today. So I believe that's why.
Okay, terrific. Well, welcome everyone. Okay, we need to get the agenda approved. A request if someone will make a motion.
This is Brian. I'll move approval of the agenda.
This is Sally, and I'll second it.
Thank you, Sally. Any discussion? Okay, by a vote, all those in favor of approving the agenda say aye, or show your
Aye.
hand. Anybody opposed, say nay. Okay, motion approves, agenda is approved. We'll go on to our next step, public comments for anything that's not on the agenda that people would like to bring up. Okay, I'm going to take that as there isn't anything. So now let's move to, I hope everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the April 15th meeting. If you had any comments, you provided them already. Otherwise, if I could ask for a motion to get the meeting minutes approved.
This is Brian. I'll move approval of the April minutes.
This is
Jason. I'll second.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jason. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from April 15th, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody anyone opposed, say nay. I know it's hard when someone's sharing their screen because it totally takes your Zoom and compiles it, so we only can see a handful of you, but I'm going to assume that that passed. Okay, motion passes, Catherine. And then John, if you want to give us the Board of Directors report.
Okay. So when the board met last week on May 12th, as far as items you guys would be concerned with, for information items, I think Catherine got to give them the first go around of the UPWP draft with edits and the safety plan with target setting. As far as action items was concerned, they approved the federal roadway functional classification update for monument, and they approved the TIP policies and procedures, as well as the 22 to 25 TIP draft to go out for public release. The main item on the agenda was a long discussion on the legislative update, Senate Bill 260, which has a lot of fees associated with it and some environmental requirements associated with transportation. And then they also talked about the front range passenger rail bill that's also at the legislature. They took a opposed position on the front range passenger rail, and they took a seek amendment or amend position on SB 260. Just as in a quick aside, the whole issue will get a little more complicated in that, if some of you remember a few months back, we were all, as part of the greenhouse gas rulemaking that CDOT was doing, there was discussion about the employer travel reduction program. And so CDPHE had a couple of open houses, and CDOT kind of touched on it early before they sort of backed off and let it move over to CDPHE. CDPHE basically told everybody, hey, we're only going to do this in the Denver area. Don't worry about it. Well, today at the Air Quality Control Commission meeting, the commission has said, well, we think we do want to include Colorado Springs. So even though everyone has been told that not to worry about it, I guess we shouldn't have trusted them and we should have been worrying about it. So for those of you who have a interest or concern on the employer travel reduction program, our understanding is that it is possible for the Air Quality Control Commission to go ahead and move forward with that and include Colorado Springs, even though the stakeholder process didn't quite finish out. But I guess they can do whatever they want at the state. So,
John, is that Colorado Springs proper? Is that El Paso County, or did they say?
They didn't say. So I think any employer over 100. So if you've got an employer over 100 in Fountain, it may apply.
We do.
It might apply to you. So you might want to either apply for party status in the process, or at least pay attention. But yeah, they did that, which is, like I said, unfortunate that. That's why I think we sometimes we have trust issues, right? So
wouldn't that apply to the county as well?
Again, it depends on how they write it. If they write it within the urbanized area, then yes. If the county has employers over 100 within the urbanized area, apply. Or if they write it that anything in all of El Paso County, because they want to just make sure they catch everything, then yes, it would apply to them as well. So again, that's my frustration that you hear in my voice is we were told we were not included. All of a sudden now we are included. So we really have no idea what they're doing to us, which is unfortunate. But again, we have no representation on the Air Quality Control Commission. So that's just the way it is. It's all a bunch of Boulder and Denver folks, I guess.
Hey,
Thanks,
John,
John.
are military installations exempt?
Beats me. Again, they pulled a fast one on us. I don't know what to tell you.
So John, it's Victoria. I'm shocked. I did not know that. But the way that 260 is written, it would include federal facilities as well.
Oh, wow, okay.
So when is the next meeting or the next time that we have to share our trust issues with the Air Quality Control Commission?
We'll have to get back to you on that. Like I said, this meeting was this morning, and we've sent an email off to them, letting them know that it was a surprise to us, and they said they'll get back to us, because we also pointed out that the stakeholder process should be reopened because everybody was under the impression that it wasn't, and I don't think people participated in such a way thinking it was going to impact us. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a little surprising. I did drop out of that process because they said it wasn't going to apply to us. And apparently I'm going to have to pick back up and come in. It applies to cities, to counties, to federal, to anybody that has more than 100 employees. So literally none of us that have more than 100 employees, whether we have money in taxes or not, are going to have to designate a staff person to run the program. There are surveys that are required. There are certain questions that have to be asked. Some of them are quite intrusive. And it's not going to be a free program for any of us to run. So I want to highlight that to everybody on this call. Thank you for that update.
Yeah, and Victoria, I just got, yeah, we were disappointed as well, because in fact, after they had said sort of, hey, we're not going to do that, I actually have experience with the travel reduction program on a voluntary basis that is actually quite positive. So I was actually talking to them about, hey, how do we do voluntary things, and how do we get money for the Mountain Metro Transit program so that they can continue to do voluntary things? Because if they care about air quality, GHG reduction, they shouldn't care if they get those reductions through a mandatory rule that they got to be heavy-handed with, or if they got it through voluntary measures. So I was actually trying to talk about, hey, how do we get to that money so we can do the voluntary things? How can we share information and how can we take the toolbox and have a more robust voluntary program down here? Yeah, no, this was kind of out of left field, so it is what it is. And I think what also makes it worse is, again, CDOT has still not given us the GHG reduction budget information. Now, meeting for tomorrow got canceled. We were supposed to get information on May 7th. So when we look at 260 and we try to figure out where we sit with 260, it would sure be nice to know what the rules are, but we don't even know what the rules are there. They continue to postpone. And again, we're just, yeah, it's a very frustrating experience. And I don't think anybody at the state understands what damage they're causing down the road with everything, but there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, I talked to Teresa last week and asked her when that draft language was going to come out. And she said it's going to be delayed 2 to 3 weeks at least. And my guess is that that coincides with the end of the session, because a lot of that is spelled out in 260 in very definitive and demanding ways.
Yeah. So anyhow, sorry, Dole, I maybe kind of went off a little bit of a tangent, but I thought it was when I was talking about the legislative report from the board meeting, there have been new developments since then that I thought was important to let you know. So I apologize for going off script a little bit.
No, I think it's important, and you can hear Victoria's perspective and Brandy's perspective that there's some consequences to this. So we probably need to stay attuned and up to speed on this in case we have to voice a collective opinion or something on something, you know.
And I am sharing, this is Kathleen at CDOT. I am right now communicating your concerns to my superiors as well. And yeah, I think communication needs to be proper and appropriate. So just wanted to let you know we hear you.
Yeah, and I would ask the group, based on what Kathleen just said, I mean, do we want to formalize a collective letter of, I don't know the term, letter of concern or something back to them, and not just have Kathleen, quote, mentioning some things, you know? I mean, do we want to kind of formalize where we are, what we think about it?
Well, I'm going to test my speakers. Can you hear me?
Yes, Brandy.
Sweet. That's all I needed. Go ahead.
And Dole, if I might, again, I think we need to run this through at the highest level. We'll be sending something out to the board, letting them know that this is now an issue that's back. So Kathleen, you can do whatever you think you need to do. But I think, again, we've been having these discussions for months, and if I hear frustration in my voice, we've had these discussions for months. We've been saying CDPHE or Air Quality Control Commission is probably not the best organization to review any sort of thing, transportation. We were told we were not included, and now this Air Quality Control Commission went ahead, even though staff had recommended something different, and said, we're going to include you. So this is why we don't really think that the whole GHG thing is going to end well for anybody, because CDOT can promise anything it wants, but at the end of the day, it's the Air Quality Control Commission that controls it. And that's just wrong, especially since we have zero representation. So Dole, I would say there's no need for us to communicate at that level. This is a communication that has to happen at the highest level. So.
Okay, John, that makes sense. Just keep us in the loop then, I guess.
And really, at the end of the day, it's the legislature, isn't it?
It's the legislature part of it, Wendy. But unfortunately, they've moved this over to a non-elected board that has rulemaking authority. So people who have are not accountable to anybody in the electorate on the Air Quality Control Commission, at the end of the day, have the power to make these decisions through their rulemaking process. So legislature and the governor have given them the power.
Okay.
We are powerless against them. So this is why it's really a bad idea. But Anyway, I've gone on long enough and I've opined way too much. So it is what it is and we'll just deal with it.
Well, it was helpful, John. All right. Let's continue on. Anything, John, I'm assuming that wraps up your board of directors report. So now we'll move on to our action items. First up, we have a 5310 program management plan update from a Miss Laura Cruz.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, hi.
Okay, great. I'm at the CASTA conference, so I'm actually in the pool. But I have a couple of action items to bring before you guys today. And this may be a little bit new. So PPACG actually took over the 5310 funding, the FTA 5310 funding for enhanced mobility of seniors and persons with disabilities from MMT starting January 1st this year. So we've actually been operating our program under an emergency provision, which allowed us to contract with the current service providers that we're serving under MMT, contract services with them for the first 6 months of this year until we were able to do our full call for projects for 5310. So there's a couple of things that have happened since then. The first action item that I have on the list is amendments to our program management plan. FTA requires us to have a program management plan that just outlines how we're going to manage the program. And so we presented that to the TAC back in the fall for initial review. And it was approved by the board and by FTA at the end of December last year. And so since then, as you guys know, we have had a lot of coronavirus money come at PPACG and our organizations from different directions and for different purposes. And so one of the things that I want to talk through today as an amendment to the program management plan is to allow us to allocate emergency funding to existing 5310 contractors instead of having to go through a full call for projects if that is not a necessary step. So a good example of this is with the CRISA funding as well as the American Rescue Plan funds. These are funds that have the expectation to get out quickly. And as all of you guys know that are on the call, with PPACG, it usually takes us 3 to 4 months to be able to make a decision. So this would allow us to kind of shorten that and be able to get funds out to agencies quickly, going through committees, less of a NOFA process, and being able to allocate those funds appropriately to those agencies. So that is one change to the program management plan that we're proposing today. A second change to the program management plan is actually just something that came up a little bit organically because of our situation with taking on the program so quickly. So originally in our program management plan, we did not exercise our ability to utilize pre-spending award authority. And from that, we've had to use pre-spending authority in order to kind of understand the lag time in your getting your grants together with FTA, getting those approved, and then actually being able to continue services throughout that process. And so adding this provision into our program management plan will allow us to continue to use pre-spending authority during lag times when appropriations aren't made yet, or apportionments are not made yet, or our grant is being worked on or being put to the system and being approved, so we can still be paying for services moving forward. And so that's going to be an important provision just for the sustainability of the program. Is there any questions for me on that?
So this is Victoria. I do have one quick question.
Yes.
Doing your shortened call for project process, as I'll call it, Is this sort of a temporary thing, or is this something that you want to utilize from here going forward?
So we will do a traditional call for projects for 5310 apportioned funds. So our typical apportionment, we will continue to do a traditional call for projects. This is an emergency provision so that when we do have emergency funds that are distributed to us, we want to be able to mobilize those funds as quickly as possible to those providers. And so it would only be utilized as a provision for funding such as coronavirus funding or the American Rescue Funds that are coming through.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yes. All right, if there's no other questions on that, I do have a motion recommendation. If you want to scroll up, Catherine. The proposed motion is for you guys to approve these changes, for us to incorporate them into our program management plan. These are administrative changes. I did work with FTA on these changes and making for sure that they jived with all of the regulations that they have in place. And but these are administrative changes that we can make with y'all's approval as well as the board's approval. So if there's a motion.
I'll move approval, Victoria.
This is Sally. I'll second Victoria's motion. Did we lose Dole?
Might have. It doesn't have his image up anymore.
Sally, are you chair or first
I
chair?
advise. Yes.
Yes, would you go ahead and call for it?
Yes. Any further discussion on the motion?
Would we need a second, a different second then?
I seconded it.
Yes, but since you're now taking over that.
Oh, for me to take over? Sure. If you
Yeah,
like.
so let me second the motion just to make it clean.
Good call, Tim.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Okay. Okay, any further discussion on Laura's recommendation, or actually it was Victoria's motion?
Sally, this is Jason DeBuena with Silver Key, and I had submitted for public comment on both 6A and 6B. I just wanted to emphasize kind of what Laura was sharing as well, that the partnership of the specialty regional transit providers that have come together to provide some additional solution for seniors and for those with disabilities with Invita, Silver Key, and Fountain Valley Senior Services, that we just appreciate any of the support both in this amendment and then also in the recommendations for the allocation on 6B. So I just wanted to add that to the group, and thanks for any of the support along the way as we move and navigate through these changes.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, any further comments on 6A? Then I will call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Great, okay. Laura, we'll move on to item 6B about the funding.
Awesome.
Project selection recommended.
Yes. Catherine, can you pull that up? So, one of the fun parts of my job, but also one of the harder parts of my job is trying to help guide the public, such as you guys, in the decision-making process of dividing out public funds. And so, as I mentioned before, we took on 5310 from MMT. We've been operating in kind of an emergency provision to allow us to continue services over the past 6 months. But in March, at the end of March, we launched our call for projects for 5310, and it was actually specific call for projects that outlined the needs of our community, which is specialized transit services. And so of those that applied, we had 4 organizations, which were Silver Key Senior Services and El Paso Fountain Valley Senior Center, Invita, and Community Intersections. We recruited
I wish I knew everything about Excel, but I just know just a small piece of it.
Sorry.
It's like one of those things that the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Penny, you might want to go on mute.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh. Well, I'm
So-
glad you're impressed, but yeah.
I'll just speak up.
Go ahead, Laura.
Okay, thanks. So our program management plan on a typical day outlines specific steps that we need to go through in reviewing these proposals. And so the first review process is a staff review. So looking at the proposals and working with any of the agencies that may have something in their proposal that needs to be tweaked in terms of any kind of eligibility thing or something that might have gone wrong in the system. And so we worked through that. We also recruited five public members to serve on a review panel to actually read through these proposals and score these proposals based upon a weighted score sheet that we provided in our program management plan. And from that, we had individuals from the RAC, which is usually the committee that sees all the AAA funding and works with the agencies that are associated with the AAA. There's a lot of overlap between agencies that have applied for this funding, for the 5310 funding and funding for transportation through AAA. So a couple of these members were pretty familiar with the providers already. And we had a great member of our committee, Glenn from CDOT, also volunteered to be a part of our committee as kind of the technical guy who's sort of been through this process several times, and he was really helpful guiding us as well. So we met as a committee. Each one of the committee members scored the agencies. We looked at different things in terms of their financial management and their ability to financially manage federal funds. This is a different world for some of these providers for this program, because before this, before us taking over 5310, these providers were funded through city and PPRTA funds through MMT. So stepping into federal funding is a little bit of an adjustment. And so we wanted to measure their financial capabilities of being able to manage those funds and what controls did they have in place. So we did a financial risk assessment with each one of the providers. We also looked at how well their projects and program met the spirit of our specialized coordinated transit plan, which we and PPACG head up. And that is a requirement with FTA, is that all the projects have to jive with that plan. So that was heavily weighted. And then looking at agency need, service area need, and mission alignment with PPACG and the AAA as well. And from that, after a lot of discussion and talking through scoring, but also just some general talking as we were kind of doing some subjective talk about the proposals and the meat that was in those, we came up with, the group came up with the funding recommendation that's listed below. Catherine, you can scroll. Yes, okay. So to give you an idea, we had $958,000 requested of us amongst the 4 providers, and we have $816,000 to allocate. So in the review process, while we were scoring some of them, we did have a unique situation where in looking at one of the agency's proposals in particular, we found that their programs did not align with the eligibility of FTA. And so in this funding recommendation, you'll see community intersections, which Rachel is on the call here today, community intersections on there, who was traditionally working with the city through their one ride system. And there has been some changes in that over the past year. But in working with FTA, we saw that the programs that they presented in their proposal were not open to the general public. And FTA is requiring us to work with programs that are open to the general public. And I did get verbiage from FTA that I can read today if I need to. So I am going to be working with community intersections in the coming months to better understand their programs and see how they may fit within either this funding stream or other funding streams that may be available to us in the future. Secondly, when we were looking at the scores and just kind of conversing on those scores, the group pulled out 2 agencies that scored highest among the 4. And those 2 agencies were kind of neck and neck with their ability to manage funds, their alignment with our mission, their alignment with the coordinated transit plan, and their need. And so those 2 agencies were Invita and Silver Key. Those agencies, after some discussion, the committee decided to fund their ask fully and then utilize the leftover funds to fund Fountain Valley Senior Center, who has also made a alliance with those 3 agencies, a strong alliance with those 3 agencies to serve the whole El Paso County area. Or whole urbanized area, sorry, excuse me. And so with that, there was the decision for El Paso County to have lesser funds than requested. And part of that decision amongst the group was because of the financial management piece. El Paso Fountain is, I've been in this scenario before, a one-man ship. And so wanting to work with them in the future to kind of build their capacity for managing more federal funds. But the committee felt in looking at the score sheet that it was most fair in their eyes as we were scoring agencies that to go with the higher scores and grant the request of those that had the higher scores and then adjust where we needed to adjust. I will say, as sort of the program advisor, I did present to them ideas such as taking the 3 agencies and smoothing out the decrease based upon the funds available. And the resounding response from the group and the selection committee, they said, well, why do we score them? And so I think that's something that we had to take in account. And also value, because FTA requires us to have a competitive process. So this is how it all shook out, the funding recommendations. And I know that several of them are on the call. Know that I'm the kind of person that reaches out to these people. If it's a very impactful type of decision that may impact them in ways that may force them to change some of their operations, I do reach out to them ahead of time. So they are on the call today and they are aware of this ahead of time. So if there are any questions or concerns based upon these recommendations, please let me know.
Thank you, Laura. Does anyone have any questions? And Catherine, if you can scroll down to the recommended motion. Great.
Looks like we have a hand raised from the iPhone, I believe is Jolene.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. I had emailed that I want to make a public comment. I just wanted to thank Laura and the TAC committee so much because this has been a big change with 5310. And in the Fountain area, we're really excited because in the past, nobody outside of certain boundaries with the city of Colorado Springs were able to get funded rides if they were disabled under the age of 60. So this now opens up FTA 5310 funded rides to anyone under the age of 60 that's disabled and living in the MPO. So we're excited to expand the reach, and we have a great partnership with Silver Key and Vita. And I just would like to thank everyone for assisting us, because we are the smallest one in our potential growth, and just thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rachel. And Laura, it sounds like you did a very robust call and review. So any other comments or questions about?
Sally, this is Jason DeBueno again with Silver Key, kind of building on my last comment. If I may just add a couple of other areas for the group to consider as you're moving forward with this recommendation.
Yes,
the first
please.
thing is that all three agencies that have been working together to establish a more seamless model of access for individuals. I think we're starting to see some early outcomes of that are going to actually expand services into the next year and the following year. And so as Jolene and I have connected about the recommendation, Laura certainly has, to her credit, outreached and let us know what these impacts are. I want to assure that I think I can confidently speak for Envita, Silver Key, and Fountain Valley that we are going to work as a collaboration to be able to make sure that not only because of the allocation of funds here, but we're going to maximize the opportunity of funds that come through the community for us to be able to make sure that access is available across all different individuals who otherwise wouldn't have access to the essential medical care and some of the other things that we offer. And while this is a little bit of a kind of bumpy road that we've experienced in this transition for 5310, I think that it's going to smooth out well into the next year. And with that, we're all very committed to be part of this partnership to whatever degree we're able to be funded along the way. And I know that our teams across the organizations are going to support each other to be successful and a strong structure for sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Other comments or questions? Otherwise, I'd like to hear a motion.
This is Tim. I'll move approval.
And do we have a second?
I was giving Brian the chance to second, but I'll go ahead and second the motion.
Thank you, Victoria. Any last discussion on the motion to approve the recommendations for providing these funds? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Sounds like motion passes unanimously. And I see that Dole is back on the call. So Dole, I'll let you take over.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you very much.
I got your back.
I had a panicked superintendent, so that needed my attention.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Thank you, Laura, for your time and presenting and managing that program.
Thank
Seems
you.
like that's going to really serve the community well.
Well, and thank you guys for hearing our request. I know this is a new program for you guys to really evaluate as a TAC. So you're not gonna get away without seeing me more. So I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Okay, Catherine, you want to roll us into our 2021-2024 TIP amendment?
Yes, thank you, Dole. All right, so I'm really missing Jessica Bechtel right now. She makes this process so smooth. All right, so this is for the FY 21 through 24 TIP amendment number 12. We had 3 requests, 2 coming from Mountain Metro Transit and 1 from, well, the agency is in Vita, but it actually came from CDOT headquarters, and so did actually one of the MMT requests as well. So the first one came directly from Mountain Metro Transit to update a project scope to revise their bus stop ADA compliance project that has multimodal funds on it, and they wanted it to now read improving in our construction and constructing new bus stops. So before it was just improving current ones. Now they want to adjust the scope to say improving or constructing new ones. But no change in the total cost. So they're still going to fit those changes within that same amount. And then the second two are for adding new projects. Both were awarded funds through the FAST state funds, and the FASTER and the SB 288. So those are for transit vehicle replacements and the amounts listed in that. And I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
No, thank you.
This is Brian.
Brian.
I'll move approval of amendment number 12 for the FY 2021-2024 tip.
I bet you would. All right, do we have a second?
This is Sally and I'll second it.
Thank you, Sally. Any other discussion about this amendment? Okay, all those in favor of approving this fiscal year 2021-24 tip amendment number 12, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Catherine, for presenting that. We'll get that amended. And then, like most of our meetings, we're going to stick with you, Catherine, and you get to continue to present.
At least I got a little break this time with Laura. All right, so this is an item you actually saw last month for information. Wendy Patterson with MMT presented regarding the MMT safety plan and their target setting. And so now we're bringing it back to you for recommended approval. This is for the federal transit safety targets that come from their transportation agency safety plan. As an NPO, we are required to coordinate with the public transit provider in the area and incorporate the targets from the safety plan and the performance measures into our long range plan and our short range plan. And so that's what you're seeing here is the targets laid out, and the request is for incorporating or approving the targets so that we can then incorporate them into our long range plan and the TIP. So you'll actually see with the long range amendment that currently being worked on, you'll see some wording and some these targets added into the long range plan via that amendment. And then with the new TIP document, you'll see that this is added into that when that gets approved. The planned approval is in August for that. So just so you're aware of how that actually gets incorporated into this. So this right now, you're just approving that we agree with these targets that they've set, being the designated recipient and the experts in the area, and that we will add these to our planning processes and documents. And I'm happy to take any questions on that.
I'm going to assume, Brian, that Mountain Metro is okay with these goals and targets.
Yeah, so much so since we did the plan, and I'll take it a step further and propose we approve this motion. So I'll recommend adoption of the MMT safety targets for inclusion in the LRTP and the TIP, and to make updates to the targets as part of the LRTP system performance report updates every 4 years, along with the other Federal Highway Administration required performance measure targets. Thanks for having that written out.
Thanks, Brian, for also that last piece was another key piece that the MPO actually needs to, we have to decide how often we're going to update these, and based on the recommendations, it would be along with the other targets that we set every 4 years with the plan. So thanks, that actually reminded me. So thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Victoria. Any other discussion about this revision or setting these targets? Okay. All those in favor of adopting this new safety targets, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes unanimously. And then Catherine, looks like you've got one more.
Yes, thank you. All right, so this is for the 22 and 23 UPWP, our Unified Planning Work Program. Like before, you've actually seen this the last couple of months where we brought you the draft and provided opportunity for comments and changes. And then we brought those comments back to you again for review. So now we're finally bringing it to you for your review and recommendation of approval to the board. And so this, for some of you that maybe haven't been there the last couple of months, we'll quickly go over. The UPWP is a planning document or plan that we are required from the federal level to complete every 2 years. And at a minimum, we have to include description of the planning work and the resulting products that we do as an MPO staff and who will perform them, the timeframes for completing those work, the cost of the work, and the sources of the funds. We're also required to outline what we completed in the last document and outline anything that may have been, not completed, why, and we roll that into the next plan, or it's no longer needed, then it drops off. But essentially, most of the time we get those things done. So this year we kind of did a larger update. We moved some things around. We changed the work item numbers, but in general, it doesn't really change what we're doing. It just changed how we're going to bill them and identify them in the UPWP document. Last month, we also had some updates, recommendations from Federal Highway and FTA, which we brought to you and made those updates. And then even since then, we've also made a couple more minor tweaks, no changes to the funds, but we did add wording to include the GHG roadmap piece that John's been kind of mentioning a lot. So we wanted to make sure that we put wording in there that says that we're keeping on top of that legislation and making sure we're going to follow those rules. And then we also included wording talking about the urbanized area boundary updates as needed because of the 2020 census data that came out, which means we need to make sure that our urbanized area boundary is up to date based on the latest figures. So that changed as well. The latest draft can be found at that link. Otherwise, we ask for your recommended approval.
Victoria, I'll move approval.
This is Brian.
Thank you, Brian. We have a motion and a second on the table. Any other discussion on this topic? Catherine, I know you guys have worked a long time on this, so it's good to see this get wrapped up. All those in favor of making this change, adopting this plan, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Let's get the plan adopted, and then let's roll into our CDOT updates. I don't know who wants to talk first from CDOT. Wendy, maybe? Or Kathleen?
Kathleen, sure. What we're doing at CDOT HQ anyway is we're preparing for a new normal related to the COVID pandemic. We're hoping to have a hybrid meeting of the stack in June. We're also evaluating how CDOT will respond to the new mask order that if you're vaccinated, that you don't need to wear a mask indoors or outdoors. So we're still waiting to hear what CDOT's policy is for people visiting the buildings and so forth. The other thing that we're doing is we are definitely keeping conversations going about Senate Bill 21-260. It was discussed at the stack, and the concerns raised here today have been I'm notifying staff of those concerns. And those are the key things. I mean, between the Senate bills and the COVID response, those are the things that we're up to that would be of interest to the folks here. Wendy, do you have any Region 2 updates?
Now that I finally got unmuted, no. Everything's good. Basically, we're just waiting to have direction to figure out how we go back to work, and that hasn't happened yet. So I'm assuming that we'll probably see something after the holiday. What do you think, Kathleen?
Yeah, I would hope we would see some guidance and more clarity after that. And then the other thing is there are going to be 3 transportation commissioners rolling out of their spots, and 3 new ones will be added in the June timeframe, I believe. And, but I believe your commissioners, Commissioner Tebow is going to be one of the commissioners leaving.
He's for
Oh, wait a minute.
Pueblo
No,
area.
Yeah,
He's not
Tebow's
inside.
Pueblo.
oh,
Ours,
sorry, you're right. Yeah, Hickey is your commissioner.
yes.
Anyway, 3 will be rolling in and 3 will be rolling out. It's Zink, Gifford, and I'm forgetting the third one that's leaving. I think
It's
it
Tebow.
may be Tebow.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's term
All right.
limited, so yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, that's all from C.HQ. So
Thank you, Kathleen. Anything from CDOT Region 2?
I don't have anything else. And I don't know if Lachelle's on the line, if she has any updates from project perspective.
Hey, Wendy, quick question.
What's that?
Do we have roll forwards taken care of, or do we still need to do that, and when?
Well, I can't do roll forwards until June, till I know that you have everything that's going to be budgeted until that drop dead date happens. So at that point, we'll handle roll forwards like we normally do. So I'll look to see what needs to happen. I'll send a message over to PPACG and Lachelle for concurrence, and we'll be able to move forward with it. So we should be fine.
Thank you. I couldn't remember. I appreciate it.
No problem. No problem.
And Wendy and Lachelle, I don't mean to put you guys on the spot, but has there been any progress on a streamlined federal stimulus IGA process?
Everything that was over 150,000, which was almost everybody, except for one, I think, has to go through the regular process. So we'll get those going just like any other project. We'll try to streamline it a bit because contracts knows they're coming and it's a different type of contract, but it still has to go through the same IGA process, and you have to have notice to proceed before you can do anything, and the whole 9 yards.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of a time frame of when you guys might be able to start sending those draft IGAs out to the members?
Those will be coming pretty quick. I think almost all of them I assigned to Matt. I think Matt's on the line, but he'll get those rolled out here going pretty quick.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Lachelle.
I have a couple other things to
Okay, Catherine.
discuss that have come up since this agenda went out. One item is we received some updated allocation estimates from CDOT headquarters. The previous estimates we received were included the full Region 2, and there was some confusion as to, because of turnover and different things, as to what allocations needed to come to us. So the point of that is for our current call for projects that's open right now for the 23 through 27 TIP, the TAP numbers are off, and we have overestimates on how much TAP funding we should program in this call. So I'm going to have to send out I'm going to be sending out just after this an updated set of numbers for what we're going to be doing on carpool projects for. The original numbers were about 800,000. They're actually about 500,000. So not insignificant, but that we'll just have to go with that. The STP numbers are actually fine. It was just the TAP numbers that were out of whack there. So you'll see that from me. Also, along with that, for the 23 through 27 TIP, the call for projects, we need to adjust the schedule slightly. The application due date can still be the same, or we can give you a couple more days, but we need to adjust when we do the project selection workshop so that we have time to add in an environmental justice analysis before and after project selection for you all to review. So with that said, I wanted to chat with you all about changing the date of our project selection workshop to later in July, like the 21st, 22nd, or the 23rd. And I want to get a feel for if you want to make that change now, or if I should send out an email to get a poll for availability for that.
Catherine, remind us what the original date was.
Sure, yeah, it was June 25th. So we were going to have the applications due on the 23rd, and we were going to do the workshop on the June 25th. We can do June 25th for the application due date, and then a few weeks later for the selection workshop.
This is Brian. I love that you're able to push that out because I wasn't able to make the project selection workshop at the end of June. So that would be great for me. Thank you.
Okay, it's actually the total opposite for me. I was fine at the end of June, and I won't be at the one in July.
Well, however it goes, if you support me, I'll support you.
There you go.
Well, I'll send out a poll and we'll see what we can do to make that work for everyone, because I know obviously we don't want Victoria to miss out on that. Is the following week after that better, Victoria, or do you kind of just need to think on it?
No, I'll be out till the 31st of July, and I'll be back in August.
Okay, what about the week before, like the 15th or the 16th?
I am planning a 2-week vacation home. So even if you go up a week, I still won't be there. I can send somebody else. I'm not the only one in El Paso County that works.
Are you sure? I don't think so.
I was gonna say, are you sure?
I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Thank you for those lovely compliments.
Okay, I'll send out an email unless anyone else wants to provide some feedback on the timing of that, and we can get that rescheduled.
Okay.
So sorry for the change, everyone. We just need to make sure we fit that analysis in for our compliance with our documents. And then the final thing I wanted to just mention was that I believe we're going to try to do a hybrid TAC meeting for June. So just kind of a heads up that I think, and John, tell me if I'm wrong, that we will be able to have some people into our June TAC.
I don't need to correct you. That is correct. Yeah. As far as we're getting everything set up, so by the time we meet in June, you should have the option of either calling in from wherever you're at to coming into the office. I did mention to folks that this group may actually prefer to actually always meet virtually, given our geographic disbursement. But that being said, we'll have as a rule that staff will at least be in the building. So even if it's just Catherine and I sitting downstairs tapping buttons, you can come and join us if you'd like in person, or you can continue to do it virtually. Hopefully it'll be a setup where, again, it's whatever works the best for you guys, because I know that you're all busy and taking the time out of your day to drive here. And the meeting is important because we have money decisions, right? But the drive there and the drive back is wasted time for you guys. So we're going to do everything we can to have the new normal be where you can participate remotely from here on out, and that shouldn't change. I see Gail has her hand up, Dole. I don't know if that's for this.
Yeah, Gail, go ahead and I'll come back to your point, John.
Hey, Dole, and I can wait. I actually have a question that's kind of relevant for this group. I want to ask if you want to continue on this point about the meeting format.
No, go ahead, Gail.
So my question was actually for PPACG or our friends at CDOT to see if we've heard anything about future allocation coming down to PPACG from the American Rescue Plan Act.
I haven't heard, this is Glenn Krause. I haven't heard anything about that as of yet. I just got an update on CRISA funds this morning that the expectation is they'll be awarded directly to subrecipients. And I mentioned that because of the management plan amendment calling for distribution of that. But I don't have any news on ARPA funds as of this time.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anything else that we may have missed? We want to go around to our member agencies. Any announcements or updates from them? City of Colorado Springs, I'll just call on you. Paso County, Fountain.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, great. Any items that we need to add to the agenda for Catherine to be aware of for future meetings that we want to discuss? Okay.
Dole, Dole, on that item real quick. At future agenda items, we'll be seeing Mark Northrup on the 2045 long range plan amendment. So we've gotten some projects from all of you. Hopefully at this point, we've gotten everything from you that we need so we can start packaging that all together because I know that Colorado Springs wants to make sure that that amendment is well underway by the time the Senate earmark. Some of the House folks aren't necessarily participating, but I believe the Senate Democrats are, and I think you do have a application in with Senator Bennett. So I think we're still on for that. So I know we do want to move as swiftly as possible with the amendment. And I know Mark wanted to maybe have a workshop on that just so we didn't tie up everybody and have it on the tax. So Mark will have some sort of workshops here in the near future on the long range plan amendment, and then it'll have to come through TAC as part of the process. Did I get that right, Catherine? She's nodding, so I think I got it right. So Gail, I think had something, Dole.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing up the earmarks. And in fact, we did have contact with Senator Bennett's office yesterday. And so we are still pursuing that opportunity. So we'll want to make sure that's moving forward. I did have one other thing that we'll be taking to PPACG, but wanted to make the TAC aware that the City of Colorado Springs is intending to submit for a RAISE grant for a project within the city. It's the UPRR bridges that go over Fontanero Street, since we only are partially funded for that work and we actually need significant assistance for that. So unless there's some particular action we want to take as a CAC, I will be presenting that to PPACG for consideration.
Thanks, Gail. I would also add, I just appreciate that, John, for you to know, PPACG staff helped the city of Manitou update our functional classifications to better reflect what we all have experienced when you're out there on the traffic and volume. So we're all pretty happy to have some of our much busier roads upgraded so they can qualify for some federal funds, which then we can get in the long range plan, which then we can step projects for. So just really appreciate your staff and everyone helping us through that. So that's just a big win for our city. So.
And Joel, I would echo that for Woodland Park. It was great working with Will on updating our street classifications too.
Yep, happy to do it. And again, that's something that as the MPO, we should be doing more often than what every 14 years or whatever the last one was. It's something that actually should happen right before the beginning of a long range planning process. So that way everybody knows what's eligible and what's not. So hopefully this will be a big lift because we're doing a lot of past work, but from here on out, it should just be minor tweaks about every 4 years or so. And it might be a little different. I think we might have to also look at after the census is released, after we do the boundary, some things might change from rural collector to urban collector or vice versa. So there might be another little tweak in there someplace else as well. So, but yeah, hopefully we'll be on a schedule and we're happy to help.
Okay. Unless anyone else has any other comments, let's adjourn this meeting and everyone will for those that are attending, we'll see that street light presentation here. I think that starts at that at 3:30?
I
Or
believe
three.
it's 3. Yeah.
All right, so that starts here in 20 minutes. So for those that are planning to attend, we'll see you all in 20 minutes. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.